Hi guys, and welcome to the first video of the nervous system series. In this video, we're gonna talk a small introduction about the important definitions and terms you guys need to know before diving into the ocean of the nervous system. Now, to start talking about the definitions, I just want you to remember that the basic unit of your nervous system, as you've taken in the histology of the nervous system, is your neuron. And the neuron, which is the nerve cell, is basically composed of the dendrites that receive the nerve impulses. It has the body and it has the axon. Now, once you get the nerve impulses into the cell body from the dendrites, you get this electricity or the electrical impulses passing through the axons, and from the axons to the axon terminals. And from there, you need to take the information to the next neuron if you have more than one order neuron, or you can take it to the muscle if you have a neuromuscular junction. So it depends on where you're going to end up your pathway. So why is it important to remember the neuron? Because that will take us to the first terminology of this module, which is the difference between the white matter and the gray matter. As we talk about the central nervous system and the brain and the spinal cord, which this is a coronal section in the brain and this is a cross section of the spinal cord, we're going to talk about the white and gray matter. So what is basically the difference between them? The difference between them is that if you look at the white matter, which is outside in the spinal cord, and it's inside in the brain, um, here you have myelinated axons. What does that mean? If your axon is wrapped around by myelin sheath, and that myelin sheath is actually composed of lipids, that will give the axons a white appearance in the fresh state. That's why when we look at the brain and the spinal cord, we get to see white areas. That means that in these areas, we have myelinated axons. The axons are traveling up and down in the central nervous system. However, when we look at the gray matter, in that gray matter, we don't have myelinated axons. We either have the cell bodies or we have non-myelinated axons. If the axon is unmyelinated, it does not contain myelin sheets around them, it means this is going to be my gray matter. Now, how are the gray and white matter grouped? In the spinal cord, we have the white matter all around you, and you have the gray matter as H-shaped inside the cross section of the spinal cord. In the brain, it's the opposite. You get to have the white matter. You have your myelinated axons inside, and then in the outside, in the cortex, we have the unmyelinated axons, or you have the cell bodies. So this is basically your cortex. So you have the gray matter outside, and inside you have the white matter. Other than that, deep in the brain, you have some collections of important cell bodies. These important cell bodies are buried deep in the brain, so they are going to give you gray matter also. So whenever you have nuclei, which is a group of cell bodies inside the central nervous system, it means here you have a gray matter. So this is basically a group of cell bodies inside the central nervous system, and we're going to talk about the nuclei as we proceed. So as of here, I'm expecting that everyone understands the difference between the white matter and the gray matter. So if you look here again to another picture, that will show you that how we get to have the dendrites and cell bodies or the terminals of these axons. We don't have myelin in the gray matter, and that is in the cortex, in the H-shaped gray horn inside the spinal cord. It's in the cortex outside in the brain, and in some collection of neuronal cell bodies inside the central nervous system. Here we will also get to have gray matter. And of course, we cannot say basal ganglia because it should be called basal nuclei, because now we will identify what's the difference between the ganglia and the nuclei. All right, and if we have a white matter, it means this is myelinated group of myelinated axons. So you guys, whenever we find group of cell bodies, this is the gray matter. If we have group of axons, these are white matter. Another thing, if you see columns in the central nervous system, we call them also, these are also group of myelinated axons. If you have the word nuclei, because I like this picture and we're going to talk about the nuclei again, but because this is a nice picture to show you, this is a nuclei. Whenever you hear the word nuclei in the nervous system, don't think about a nucleus of a cell. Think about a group of cell bodies in the central nervous system, just like the basal nuclei, like your thalamus, like your hypothalamus. It's basically a group of cell bodies. We call them nuclei. All right. Now, the first thing we already talked about, which is the cortex that surrounds your brain. And in that, you have the cell bodies or you have non-myelinated axons. In that case, this is the gray matter. So the gray matter can be seen in the central nervous system as the cortex of the brain. We also have the ganglion. Where are these ganglia? We're going to talk about the ganglia as we proceed. We can have it in the somatic. We have a somatic sensory ganglia and we have autonomic motor. Why the somatic is sensory and why the autonomic is only motor? We're going to talk about that as we get the picture. But whenever you hear the word ganglia, think about a gray matter. Now we have also the word layer. You will get to see cerebellar layer. If you have a layer in the central nervous system, you need to think about the gray matter. The nuclei, as I mentioned previously, is when you get to have a group of cell bodies. This is basically a gray matter. So the nucleus is not the nucleus of a cell. It's a group of cell bodies in the central nervous system. So if I have a group of cell bodies, I have different types of neurons. I have a collection, like if we say this is an axon, and this is a neuron, sorry. This is a group of cell bodies. These are group of cell bodies responsible for a specific function. If they group themselves together in the central nervous system, I'm gonna call them what? Nucleus. All right? I can have the nuclei, like the basal nuclei of the brain. I can have them in the H-shaped gray horn. Here, we're going to see groups of nuclei. Every one of them is responsible for a specific function. This is nothing but the group of cell bodies of the axons that are trying to travel up to the brain or down to the effector organ. Okay, so nuclei are group of cell bodies in the central nervous system. All right. Another thing is some terms used to express the white matter. Now, if you think about the white matter, like I said previously, if we think about these cells, because here we are in the nervous system, so we're talking about the neurons, the nerve cells. So if I have group of myelinated axons, these are going to be forming to us columns. So the white matter again is where you get to see myelinated axons traveling up and down. If they are traveling up, this is sensory information. If they are traveling down, this is a motor information. So if I have here outside a white matter, and that white matter is here in the spinal cord, is divided into what we call funiculus, three funiculi. We have the dorsal funiculus, we have the lateral, and we have the ventral. This is divided by the H-shaped horn. This is basically the cord itself, the group of myelinated axons traveling up and down. Okay, so this is a white matter. White matter has columns or funiculi, group of axons. They take information and they travel up and down. However, if I am in the gray matter, if I'm in the H-shaped gray matter here, this is my H-shaped gray matter, the blue. It means I have the cell bodies, the unmyelinated axons, and the cell bodies. So the H-shaped gray matter, cell bodies, the columns or funiculi, it's the white matter. All right, and we also have the word lemniscus. We have the word lemniscus. Lemniscus means a ribbon. And that ribbon is basically, we will hear the word lemniscus in the brainstem. You guys gonna get into the brainstem. We're gonna talk about the parts of the brainstem, the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla. And we're gonna see the tracts that are traveling up and down. They're gonna change their names into lemnisci. Why do we call them lemnisci? This is because we have a lot of information traveling up and down by the bundles of axons, and they are going to be condensed in a small place, and they're also going to cross, forming this ribbon. So in the brain stem, once you get to, guys, can you guys see the green color? Once you get into the green color, it means this is a lemon sky. Look at this. You guys can see that the same pathway was blue, and then it came back to blue, but here it was green. This is just because we want you to know that the same tract is going to change its name in the brainstem into lemniscus. However, the same lemniscus was having a different name down in the spinal cord, different name up in the brain, but it's just the same tract. So remember, lemniscus is just a terminology that we will give it to the tract in the brainstem of the important tract that's going up to the brain or down to the spinal cord. And we're going to talk about them into details. But now you just need to understand the meaning of lemniscus. And you guys, my advice is, once you hear this, because this is the first time for you to hear about the terminologies, and as you proceed step by step with me in the whole parts of the brain, spinal cord, the brainstem, I want you to come back to this. Just listen to this video one more time, because that will help you grasp the idea when you get into more details about the tract and the different parts of the tract. And then you come back to this, that will make a beautiful sense for you, and everything is going to be so much easy. All right, but now everything is new to you. It sounds weird, but just listen to this couple of times and everything is gonna be so much easy. Now, coming to the tract, I just explained the tract for you. The tract is basically that tract that will get you the sensation from your, let's say, your organ. Let's say you have a muscle here and you're getting an information. You're gonna get it to a tract. That tract is going to enter the spinal cord. It's going to ascend all the way up until it reaches the brain. This is what we mean by the tract. It's the bundle of axons that are going to travel all the way, and they're going to have a specific function. So the broad name is the tract. All right, but then we will give different names of the same tracts based on where we are. All right, during this journey, we're going to talk about the journey of the sensation. We're going to talk about the journey of the motor stimulation. We're going to talk about everything into an interesting details, but here you need to know what is the broad names and terminologies of everything of the nervous system. All right. Okay, so as a recap, remember that today we've learned about the gray matter and white matter. The gray matter means we have group of cell bodies or unmyelinated axons, and we can see that in the cortex of the brain, we can see it in the ganglion, we can see it as a layer in the cerebellum, for example. We can have it as a nuclei, all right? And then we also have the white matter, which we can see it in myelinated axons, and these myelinated axons can show in different ways. It can show as a column in the spinal cord. It can show as the funiculi of the spinal cord, the outside area of the spinal cord. It can show as the lemnisci. These are the traveling axons in the brainstem. It can show as the tract, as anywhere of the tract, whether in the spinal cord level down or in the brainstem level or above in the brain. And these are all forms of white matter. They are all forms of myelinated axons. Okay?